Exercise 2. In this exercise, we're going to take a look at using the Revolve feature as well as some filleting and ribs. And then, as you can see here, there's a photorealistic rendering that I threw together. So let's take a look at this. First of all, if you want to get manual, you could grab the manual at vertanu1.com, go to instructional manuals at the top, and you'll find the Autodesk Inventor, the green button. Go ahead and select it. And there you'll find the training guide. What you're going to want to do is this exercise begins on page 22. Now, the two ingredients that are required for Revolve features, as you can see here, is first of all a profile, so an enclosed profile hopefully, and also an axis of revolution, which could be in the center line or an edge. And here you can see our goal is to create that wheel. There's a cross-sectional profile of what it's going to look like. So let's begin by drawing. We're starting a new part actually. And I'm going to disable this. Start a new part file, standard iPart in inches. Hit create. We could click on Start 2D Sketch and select the XY plane. Take your line tools and glide up above the origin and on this axis in the center. And you probably want to zoom out a little bit. I'm actually using the scroll. I have to move my pointer down and scroll backwards because we want the center line to peak out at about 1.5 inches approximately. Mine's at 1.3. That's good. Click, drag it down to the origin. Click again, and drag this across about 3 inches. And then you could go ahead and hit escape on your keyboard. Now go ahead and control select or group select the two lines and go up here to the center line tool and click on it, and that transforms them to center lines for us. Now we could go ahead and take the line tool, and actually if we click on front here, it will zoom up to what we're working on, so it's a little easier to click and select. So move your pointer approximately, like in this case you could get the X and Y feedback, approximately 1/4 of an inch, so minus 0.25 or something, and click on that line. Now you're going to drag up a vertical center line approximately 1 inch. Now it's not exactly 1 inch, so just get close. Don't type in the number. Just get close to 1 inch and make sure it's at 90 degrees. Click, drag across. Now this one you could actually type in a value of 0.4 once you start drawing it across and hit enter. This one you're not going to type in a dimension, but get it approximately 1 inch, and notice the angle that we're at there. So 115-ish is pretty good. Just don't touch the center line yet. Click, drag this across about 1 inch, and make sure it's horizontal. Click, drag up a vertical center line. Do not infer to that. Make it a little bit taller, so you want it about 1 inch in height. Click, drag this across. Now this one, as long as you're at 90 degrees, make sure it's 0.25. Click. And now you could connect this, or actually you could just, without connecting it, you could hit escape, because we'll draw a line across there once we mirror it. So here we have some basic geometry created. Now we want to mirror, and we looked at mirroring briefly in the lab 1B earlier, but let's take a look at how to mirror again. So if you click on the mirror tool, right now it's in selection mode. You get to select what you want to mirror. So you could control select each individual line you want to mirror, or you could just click and drag a fence to surround the geometry that you want to mirror across, excluding the center lines. Release it. Those are selected. Now you could click on this button for mirror line. Select this the horizontal center line and hit apply. You could go ahead and hit done. Now you'll see with the mirroring tool, it actually mirrors these two lines. One reason I didn't put the lines in between here is because maybe we just want to keep it one solid line. So either or is fine, whichever one you prefer. Okay, now with that being done, let's go to the dimension tool and add some dimensions. First of all, the distance between the center line and this line is actually going to create a hole. The actual distance that we're going to get from it is going to be a diameter, but Inventor does something rather neat. When you click on that object line and then the center line, you'll see it automatically gives us a diameter, which is exactly what we want. If you don't want that for some reason, be aware you could always right click, and by changing it to a linear dimension, you'll see it's now the equivalent of a radius. But we do want that one to be a linear dimension, so let it stay at the diameter, little diameter symbol there. Now click and make it 0.75. That's the diameter of our hole. Now let's go ahead and add an angle dimension on this line to this vertical line. Move your pointer between the two to get the angle. Click, and that will be 18. Now if your geometry is beginning to skew a bit, you could always hit the escape key, as I'm going to do right now, and you could grab points and stretch it, because sometimes this happens. And if you see something like that, just hit escape and drag it out to untie it, you might say, out of the knot that it's forming. Okay, let's go back to dimension. Next dimension, this point to the center line, and that's going to be 2. Now the dimension between both of these lines, just drag that over there, it's going to be 0.25. Go ahead and click on this line that we drew in and just make sure it's 2 inches. Otherwise, if it's 2 separate lines, you might want to dimension the top to the bottom. And finally, let's dimension this line here to the center line, and that's going to be 5 inches. And then hit escape, and you could lay your dimensions out, make them look a little more organized, because later with exercise 6, when we get to detailing, you'll note that you can actually retrieve these dimensions and drop them in automatically rather than redimensioning everything over again. It saves time. And there we go. Okay, now if you just click on front, you can see we have half of our wheel. Let's go ahead and revolve it. Go to 3D model, revolve, and zoom out. Now if it doesn't automatically revolve, don't panic, because it just doesn't know which center line or axis of uses an axis of revolution. So make sure you just select this vertical center line if it doesn't select it for you. And go ahead and just hit the green check mark. And now we have our revolve feature, our wheel. Let's add some details to this. Go to the Fillet tool, set the radius here. Remember, if you hit this little arrow here, you can pull down this information. And set it to 0.1. Hit enter. Go ahead and select these 2 edges up top here, and the ones at the bottom. And then this one here, and then there's one underneath it that might be difficult to get. You might have to rotate around. I'm getting it, but I'm going to rotate around just so you can see this. Holding shift and the middle and the mouse button, click on that one and hit apply. Now being that we hit apply, now we could enter a different radius for the other area. Set it to 0.5. Hit enter. Now select this edge here, and if you need to, you could rotate it and select that edge. Now if you don't have these same edges, not to panic, eventually you'll get better at using the software, but you could always hit undo up at the top or cancel out if you get the wrong ones, and just keep practicing until you get the ones that you're interested in. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and click on this face and just show you. You could go up here to default for materials, and we're just going to highlight that face with a different color. So in the I'm going to go with glossy forest green. Okay, you didn't need to do that, but as you saw in my image, I have that in here. Okay, now what we're going to do next, we want to put a series of ribs in here, and then we're going to mirror them over to the other side. So go ahead and select this face to start a sketch. Take your line tool and you don't have to. One reason I had you highlight that green is because anything beyond that green or even in it, you're starting to intersect into the solid geometry. So my hope is that you'd stay away from it. So just go ahead and draw a little line from here to here, and you can hit escape and you'll see that you have the line there. Okay, go ahead and draw some additional ones, one in here, and you could also just hit OK. Then you right click again and you could click repeat line, and there's all types of, there's fast keys, there's all types of things you could do the more you use the software. So I'm going to hit escape. So now we could see there I have those lines floating out there. Now I'm not going to fully define them all. You could define them all if you wanted to, but I'm going to just let them there for right now. At this point, we could go to 3D Model and find the rib tool. Now the rib tool, or the rib feature, you could specify a wall thickness for the rib, as well as other factors. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and select these sketches that I drew, and you'll see it automatically extends them until they contact the other surfaces. Be aware you can't draw a sketch on a planar face from the base and extrude them up as the rib tool using the rib tool. So you always want to have them floating in space. You can't have them go in at an angle, things like that. There are some other options there, but just be aware I selected this top face and then drew these. You're not always lucky enough to have a face like that to select, so be aware. In the next exercise, exercise 3, we learn how to create planes and offset them. That's a tool you're going to really need to use more often if you're making lots of ribs. Okay, moving along here. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to go to the fillet tool and just set my fillet radius to 0.06. Hit enter. And go ahead and select these edges here. You'll see they propagate around. Get them on both sides. So if you need to, you could rotate to get the other sides, or select through the part, whatever is easier for you. Hit apply. And go ahead and hit cancel. That's all we needed with that. Now we want to get all those on the bottom surface. So to do that, let's go to the mirror tool. So mirror is up here. Go ahead and select mirror. Now the features we want to mirror, go ahead and select the rib and the fillet. Now if the fillet fails, sometimes I've seen on other CAD systems and things that it doesn't like to have too many features at once when you mirror it. We'll go ahead and give it a try. If it fails to mirror the fillet along with this, we could do them separately. So we selected the features. Now we go to the mirror plane. Now hit the little arrow to the left of origins, and here you can see the planes that are existent in your model. What you'll notice is the XZ plane runs right through the center. So we could select the XZ and go ahead and hit OK. Now we get an error message. It says it failed. Let's take a look. Okay, so we're seeing the preview. Like I said before, part of the problem may be the fillet. So let's go back to features here, and actually let's escape out of there and let's go back to the mirror tool, and we're going to just select the rib this time, and we'll do them separately, and then the mirror plane, the XZ plane, and hit OK. And you can see that it had no problem bringing those over. So there's a couple things you could do. You can either refillet it or try and carry those fillets over in a separate mirror feature. Let's go to mirror. Let's select the fillet 3 now, and then the mirror plane again. We could go ahead and select the XZ once more and hit OK. So there you can see, and that's not just exclusively to this CAD system. Many CAD systems have difficulty mirroring features like that. Okay, so with that being completed, now if you wanted to photorealistically render this, I went with actually the mirror. And if you go to view, You could turn it from orthographic to perspective, which gives you a vanishing point. You could turn all the shadows on, as well as reflections. And then visual style, if you want to take a look at it, go to realistic. And if you want, you could even ray trace it. If you click on ray tracing and get a very high quality, crisp image. And under ray tracing, you have more tools. You could go to draft or high quality. The higher you set it, the longer it takes, but usually the better it looks if you're willing to wait. One thing you might notice, though, here's a little trick to doing this, and I'm not certain if Inventor has this in their render. Some renders have it automatically, where it rounds sharp edges. Like, see those sharp edges? They just kind of blend in. You can't diversify. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to disable that for a second. If you go to the 3D model tools, go to Fillet, and set the fillet to a very small, like 0.007, so 7 thousandths of an inch. And just select these edges. And that basically breaks them, and it highlights them when you see it render. Hit apply. And now, let's go back to view. And we're still in realistic. We can click on ray tracing. And now look at that. It actually shows the edges a little bit better. It's more realistic in appearance versus it just perfectly blending into the other surface, which it doesn't always do. And the longer you give it, the better it's going to look. So that's a couple tricks for you as far as photorealistic rendering. Alright, if you wanted to at this point, you could just hold Alt and hit the print screen key on your keyboard, go to Microsoft Word, and insert it. In fact, I'll do that. I'm going to go to Alt, print screen. I'm going to start Microsoft Word, and I'm going to put E2, Revolve, and Rib Features. And now you could Control V to paste it in there. Click on it, go to Format underneath Picture Tools, and you'll find Crop. Grab the black brackets in the corners. Don't grab these ones on the sides. That will scale it differently. And then squeeze that down, and now you have yourself a nice portfolio image. Okay, moving along to the labs that, if you want to continue on in the manual, you will see that there are a couple labs. There's the bolt. We don't go into the threads in this class, although Inventor does a nice job with threads. Instead, we're just going to build the shaft and the head. And then there's also the quiz 1. So let's take a look. Quiz 1 is a bit of a review of what we learned with exercise 1. So let's begin with a new part. And we'll make the bolt first. I'm going to start a sketch, in this case on the XY plane. Now remember, these ones, you really want to try them on your own. Only really watch the video if you get stuck. That's what I recommend. Or after you finish, or you complete the lab, go ahead and watch the video and you'll see some little tricks maybe that you didn't think about. Because sometimes I show you things that we haven't really yet covered. But with what you've learned, you should be able to model these. So I'm going to go to the line tool here. And the bolt itself is about 2 inches, so I'm going to zoom out again. And so I get about 2 inches here on this line. I'm going to click and drag that down. Drag this across. It's a 1/2 inch diameter shaft, so about 0.25. We could actually put that in right now. I could have actually put the 2 inches in there too. Now this one, it's a vertical length of 1.7. And then go across here, and this will be another 0.25 because the head of the bolt is 1 inch diameter. So we have 0.25 for the half of the shaft plus another 0.25 will give us 0.5. When it gets revolved around, it'll make a full 1 inch. So again, 0.25 and enter. And then this one is only, you just go vertical. Let me zoom up there so you can see that a little bit better. 0.1 in height, and then hit escape. Now we could actually go to dimension and put that 2-inch dimension in, which I could have added earlier, which I just didn't think about it. Okay, now go to the arc tool here. Now you'll see there's different types of arcs. We don't want tangent. 3-point will work as well as center point arc. Center point arc actually is really nice in this case. You just, down here somewhere, locate the center point, click and connect, and then you want to connect it up to the top there. Click again. Now what you'll see is that it's not connected, so you're going to have to just drag this down and connect it. Okay, and the nice thing is that it is locked in at your center, so really you're already at the acceptable dimension on that bolt head. Okay, with that being done, you could draw a center line like we learned earlier, but you don't really need it because you could use an object line as your center line. So if you go to 3D Model, go to Revolve, select this edge on the 2-inch, and go ahead and it will revolve around it. Hit the green check. Now there's a chamfer of 30 thousandths, so 0.03, and just select that bottom edge and hit OK. Now to get that cut out, this is the tough part, and very few students get this when they're just learning the software. And so I don't blame you for wanting to watch this because this is pretty tough. Where do you start to draw that little cutout, that notch, as we could see here on the actual manual? There's that notch. Here's one of the ways you could do it. Select the XZ plane and start a sketch. Zoom up to the, actually in this case, leave it the whole bolt. Go to the line tool and draw out a vertical line and have it peek out above the top. Then hit escape, go ahead and select it and transform it to a center line. Now you can't really see through it, unfortunately, so this is where you go to View, and you could go to Visual Style and go to Shaded with Hidden Edges, and then you could see inside a little bit easier. Now go back to your sketch tools, go to the line tool, and draw off the top of the line here a line across. Don't worry too much about the dimension, it's just floating out there. And then this line down here, we're actually making the tool that would like cut this out. And then drag this across, make sure it's just like so, and connect it, and then leave it open in the center. Now we can mirror that across, and if you remember the mirror tool, go to mirror, we just select what we want to mirror, those objects there, click on mirror line and select the center line, hit apply, and done. Now we simply dimension that according to the print. So this gets dimensioned from here to here at 0.15. The angle gets dimensioned, just select both lines right in the middle of each one. Click is 30 degrees. And then click on both endpoints here. Because it's separate lines when you mirror, you're going to have to click on the endpoints instead. And then click up here to drop this, and this is going to be 0.1. And so now we have our tool, and don't worry that it peeks out. Just as long as it peeks out, you're fine. If it's internal, make sure you hit escape and drag this up higher. Now we're ready to cut that. So if we rotate around, you can see it's right in the center. Now we could go to 3D Model, Extrude, select the two profiles, and over here we want Symmetric, and you could select all so it goes through everything. And make sure it's set to remove material, in other words cut. And there you see the preview finally of the cutout. If it looks good, go ahead and hit OK. So again, symmetric, all, cut. And make sure you select those two profiles. All right, there is the thread tool I'm not going to go through right now. That's in a future class. So there is your lab 2. Go ahead and save it as such. Let's move on to the quiz. Now this is practice for the quiz. Typically the quiz, you come in, you take it in my classes, and you have to know how to do it in advance, or practice it as many times as you like. So, but you can't actually watch the video while taking the quiz. So I'm going to hit create here. Now I'm going to go to the start a sketch, and I'm going to draw this one on the XZ plane. And this is a symmetric part, so like Lab 1B, it's very similar in tools selection. So go to 2-point center, draw this out, and make sure it's, actually I better look at the manual here because I can't remember the exact parameters. It's 6 by 3. So we go 3, and then up here, click on 6. Okay, now what you could do is take the circle tool and don't contact those centers. Remember from Lab 1B, you didn't want to touch those at all. Same thing here. Applies. Drag this out, make sure it's not touching any of the lines. It's going to be 1/2 inch diameter. Go to dimension, and dimension from the center point to this edge, 0.75. Dimension from the center point to the top edge, 0.75. Now you could go through and add each individual one if you like, but if you recall, we just learned how to mirror, so why don't we use the mirror tool? Go to the line tool, right at the center here, draw a vertical line and then a horizontal line across. Hit escape, control select both lines and change it to center line. Now we could go to mirror, select the circle, click on mirror line, and select either or. You can only do one at a time. So I'm selecting the vertical center line. Go across. Now you could go back, it lets you select these two, click on mirror line, and select the horizontal line. Now you could at this point draw the circle if you want, or leave it for last. I recommend just leaving it for last. I am a believer that you complicate a sketch too much, it makes it just that complicated, makes it difficult to work with. So try and keep them simple. But there is something to be said about efficient modeling with that too, but I'm not going to go into that right now. That's not until the advanced class. So let's go to 3D model, extrude, and make sure this profile is going to extrude up, minus the holes, and it's 1 inch thick. Hit apply. You could go ahead and put the fillets on right now. There's 0.25 radiuses that go on all 4 corners, and make sure you verify that. I better verify it on my own drawing at 0.25 and hit OK. And then now you could go to the chamfer tool, and the chamfer is 0.125 around this edge. And again, I'm just going to verify that, and you can see 0.125 at 45 degrees. And then you'll see you only have to select one edge. If you do those out of order, it changes things a little bit, so just be careful. Good practice is put the fillet in first, then put the chamfer in, or else you're going to get sharp corners possibly. Okay, now select this face, start a sketch, and we could draw the boss on the top. The boss is a 2.25 diameter, and now we could extrude that. Go to 3D model, extrude boss, and it's a height of 0.75. You could put another fillet on here of 0.25. It's remembering it from the last time. Now we could put the hole through. Select this face, start a sketch, and draw from the center a 1.25. And go to 3D model, extrude. It's going to want to add material like a layer cake, but we don't want that. Select remove material, and then instead of distance, it's supposed to go through all, so select all and hit OK. And that completes the quiz. And this concludes exercise 2.